Kinesiology
is the study of change. It is growth, then decay, then transformation.
Hank, how much money is that?
It's about 700 grand.
Make those tires shine, huh?
Sean.
Lately, it just seems quieter.
You understood what I've just said to you.
Yes. Lung cancer. Inoperable.
There's always a way. You're gonna get the best treatment.
Am I supposed to leave you with all that debt?
You want to cook crystal meth?
You know the business, and I know the chemistry. What I want, what I need, is
The soul of Detroit.
You asked it around you, the around my shirt. It's gone. What are you doing? Come on. That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
What does anybody want? What does anybody need other than the soul of Detroit? And I have to say, I think the answer is nothing. But I'd like to hear from our good friend Mark Fellhauer on this topic.
What topic? Who needs us?
What more does somebody need?
Clearly, Sean doesn't need us because he's not here today.
Yes, Sean is on the road. If you can see us on Facebook or YouTube.
The empty chair.
The Sean Cam is there, making its normal contributions, and it looks like there's a jersey there from Drew's Man Crush.
Gibby.
Kirk
Yeah.
Gibson. In fact, there's a poster. You can see the poster, Kirk Gibson, and you can see the Gibby jersey and the aura.
We're a lot of Gibby action down here. A lot of baseball action down here too.
Yeah, I wonder when Gibby comes in the studio and Drew's here, is the electricity, does the arms on the arms and the nostrils stand up?
What?
I mean, do you feel that
hair?
charge? The hair.
The hair.
What did I say?
The arms on the nostrils.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. The
Without
hair on the
Sean,
arms and the nostrils.
we're having to
I
carry
know
so
what you
much
meant.
more of the load. It's staggering.
I just thought I'd point that out. I knew what you meant. I think everybody gets a little giddy when Nick Gibby's around, right?
Okay.
He's an electric man.
Okay. Well, the Tigers
A Spartan alum too.
could have been a first-round draft pick in the NFL if he had said he was willing to play. One of the fastest guys in base paths, up and down the sidelines, a beast. Pretty tough guy. Have they ever said, or has he ever said, whether he thinks that his Parkinson's may have been caused by a lot of the contact he
that's
took
a
in
good question.
football? Because he was not one of these wide receivers who would shy away from contact.
No, but typically, a couple things. Let me ask you, because I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I'm a doctor and I know. But Parkinson's, Muhammad Ali had it, right?
Yes.
And people naturally assumed it was
It's like a CTE type of thing.
exactly.
Right.
But I believe they came out later and said it's not directly related, but it can make the onset of it appear quicker. Does that make sense? Repeated blows can make it happen sooner, but it doesn't really
Like it
cause
triggers it?
Yeah, almost.
Okay.
But wide receivers typically don't get CTE either. It's usually linemen, linebackers, the quick repeated hits, not the big concussional hits.
Okay. Well, whatever it is,
I have my medical degree.
the Tigers could use Gibson. We just ended a season where they did surprisingly well. I think, were they 8 games under 500?
They
in
were
the end?
9 games under 500 the whole year and finished 8 under.
So they finished strong. So that's great.
Yeah, sure.
But this was the 20th anniversary of the worst season in Tiger baseball. One of the worst seasons in all of baseball history, where the Tigers were threatening to equal the ineptitude record set by basically an expansion team, the New York Mets. And you may not remember this, but it was only by an incredible winning streak at the end of the season that they were able to avoid that ignominious mark. And it was partly because Ron Gardenhire, who would later manage the Tigers, put his scrubs in for the high-flying Minnesota Twins before they got into the playoffs. Tigers waxed them. I was at most of those games as a fan, and then the last game as a reporter.
You went to most of the 119 loss season?
No, most of that last homestand where they
okay.
were playing Minnesota. The weather was really nice, and it was kind of a.
So
I think
weird.
we just
so weird.
we were just able to go. I don't know, but Man, oh man.
Who else was there? Was anybody there? Or I would think it'd be totally empty.
There was a lot of room. And I was still, I think, winding up my beer man career. So, that's why I was there as a fan, because there were so few fans that season that if you were a beer man and you heard somebody yell cold beer, they were selling it, not buying it. So it was a terrible year for the vendors. But the stands were almost empty, and Gardenhire rested his stars, thinking, well, let's get them refreshed for the playoffs. In the end, the Twins, who were heavily favored in the playoffs, got wiped out, I think, because their guys were a little rusty. They were a little slow. Like when the Tigers made that World Series in, I think, 2006, and they essentially swept their way in. By the time the playoffs started, they looked like Polanco, who there was nothing he couldn't hit, all of a sudden could hit anything.
You're right. They won 5 of their last 6 that season. I do not remember that. And it's funny, as bad as that team is, I'm looking at some of the names of the players on there, and they're well-known names. Some guys hung around.
Guess who was on that 2003 team?
That's what I'm looking at.
A.J. Hinch.
A.J. Hinch was? Oh, yeah, there he is. Yeah. Hit 203 that year.
Yeah, which is why he's a manager. Although now, 203, he could be a starting catcher for the Tigers anytime over the last 5 years.
Did you watch the final homestand with Miggy?
No, I was in East Lansing, but I had the opportunity to go to the game and sit in a suite. But I decided not to Maz it because we had a Red Wings season ticket draft party, which was really just a Zoom call, not much of a party. And then I had an early hockey game. We had a 6:30 start, so I couldn't make the game and then make my game.
By the way,
which the Bulldogs won 5-4. Nail biter, hung on at the end.
Speaking of sports, I wanted to ask you. I totally forgot about this. On Thursday, I'm sitting there watching the Lions game, and I was behind because I was working. And I get home, so I'm catching up on, the DVR. And there's messages going off the group text because everybody always talks during the Lions game. And I'm ignoring them. And then I see a text from Elric. And I'm like, Elric, huh? I wonder what he wants. I can't believe he's actually watching the Lions game. And guess what? You weren't watching the Lions game. You were watching, for the second time, I believe you were watching Ted Lasso.
Well, I thought it was the second time, but then I realized I'd missed half of the shows in the second season. So a lot of what happened at the end of the second season finally made sense to me.
I was blown away that you would rather watch a show you've already watched than watch the Lions on Thursday Night Football, play Green Bay.
It was white noise. I was working on my column, and I sometimes will have something like that in the background just to...
Well, wouldn't the Lions be better white noise? I'm fascinated by your anti-Lions stance.
No, the Lions would not be better white noise.
I don't understand why you're so anti-Lions. It's a fun team.
I'm not anti-Lions. I'm indifferent. I have a hostile indifference. I guess that's what I would say.
I'm going to be indifferent. Well, okay.
Because I'm indifferent. When somebody says I should care, I get mad. Like, why should I care?
I don't have to care about it. It's sports. They're entertaining. They're a fun team to watch.
Maybe this year they are, but there are many. And I already have a frustrating football team to watch. I can't be a Spartans fan and a Lions fan. It's just I don't have the capacity. My soul is not that deep.
So how much of that game, the Michigan State game on Saturday night, did you watch?
Everything but the first 2 plays, because I was en route from one house to another house. So I saw the whole wretched thing.
That was one of the worst football games I've ever seen.
It was the second.
It's terrible.
It was the second game in a row where the Spartans could have won and did everything possible to not win. And I was talking to a fellow Spartan of mine in the locker room on Sunday before a hockey game, and I said, do we think that if Mel Tucker was still the coach and we didn't have all this drama and all this distraction that we could have won those games?
Yeah.
And he said,
yes.
I think we could have.
Yes.
And
that's a hard yes.
So I don't know whether to be angry that Tucker is basically destroyed himself and cost us games that we could have won, or grateful that, yeah, we could have won them, but we're still on a very good team and maybe it's time to reset. And, of course, I only put it in that context because he has not been found guilty or not guilty of abusing someone who has been a victim of trauma. So I don't want people to think that I only care about Mel Tucker and the Spartans in the context of winning and losing. But while that's still in abeyance, I have to look at it only as Mel Tucker's not the coach now, and the other conversation we can get back to another time, because we're going to hear more about that, because I think the hearing is coming up this week, maybe even 5th, 6th, 7th, something like that.
Hope
So we'll see. But this show, in the meantime, is brought to you by Luke Nowacki and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. Luke will help you manage your money, set you up for the kind of retirement that everybody deserves. The Caju Cafe, the pride of the East Side, great music, great food, great times. We'll tell you more about that a little later on. And the Michigan Peddler. Summer is over, fall is here, and as you know from the weather, it's going to be in the 80s again. Why not cruise around downtown, Midtown, and Corktown on a bike with some friends and some libations? Michigan Peddler is the way to go if you want to get the most out of this beautiful season. And to answer a question you had a minute ago, Mark, there were 19,000 people at that last game
19,000
at Comerica
wow.
Park.
Okay.
Yeah, and a wordsmith wrote, "Somebody call the commissioner. The season that couldn't end soon enough somehow ended just as the Tigers were heating up." In a scene reminiscent of, frankly, nothing in recent Tiger history, nearly 19,000 fans waved signs, cheered, and in a few cases dressed as Tigers for a game with none of the import, but all of the excitement of a playoff game. And there was one guy, Mark Hoffman of Harrison Township, who said, "I'm watching the Tigers beat up on the Twins so they don't get the worst record in baseball. We've won 3 of the last 4 games since Thursday night, 5 of the last 6. And, people were willing to overlook all this crappy stuff." Guess what else was going on
Who
back
wrote
then?
this? What else was going on?
Stanley Cup playoffs, which at one time
yeah.
was relevant to, remember April and the D? We used to have Pistons, Tigers,
God, that's so depressing.
Red Wings playing meaningful games. No, nothing like that. And I'll tell you this.
That's what made the 06 season so amazing. 24 game turnaround from 05 and how bad they were. And then I forget, just because they had been lousy, that they lost 114 games, a few years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, they've been, the peaks have been high and the valleys have been super low. But this isn't a sports podcast. We have a special guest joining us a little later, a student at Michigan State. We're going to connect with her after class, unless she's taken on some sort of extra credit assignment, about a professor she had in a kinesiology class who came on kind of strong, kind of weird, and then kind of disappeared. And the students got together and started talking about this cat. And because they are millennials, they know how to use the internet. And very quickly they found out that this dude had some problems in Louisiana with a little thing the kids like to call meth. And so she's going to tell us about how they basically, this kinesiology class turned out to be the Scooby-Doo kids and solved this mystery. In fact, I wish I had them in my advanced reporting class, because it sounds like they have some real journalistic chops. So she will be joining us a little later on to tell us how this dirty deal went down. And I'll tell you, as someone who is an adjunct professor at Michigan State, just as this guy was, you go through a lot of paperwork to get that job. Oh, my God.
So I would assume they do background checks, all that fun stuff?
Absolutely.
So how do the students solve this quicker than any kind of background or vetting process by the university?
Well, that's what I want her to tell us, because we will get into this story. This story was broken by the State News, by the way, last week. And when they started doing some digging into this guy's criminal record, there's a lot of weird things there. And we're going to get into that a little
more
bit
than just
later.
meth?
Well, just, how they keep records in Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, did you ever get those textbooks when you were a kid where you open it up and there's a stamp on there and it says your name, your school, your county, and then it said your parish underneath it?
No.
Okay, maybe I'm that much older than you.
Or I just didn't pay attention. Why?
Yeah. Well, you look at county and you're like, okay, and then you see parish. Like, why do they care what church I go to?
Oh, because
in Louisiana, I think it's the only state in the union where they call counties parishes. So everything down there is just a little different, a little weird. Not surprising that Charlie LaDuff has some roots in Louisiana, because he's a different kind of cat.
A lot of flavor down there.
Yes, and not just Cajun spice, and not just Tabasco sauce, because they put that shit on everything, and apparently not on their record keeping, because I wouldn't say it's spicy good. It's not good at all.
How do you view this approach? Are you embarrassed? Do you roll your eyes like, oh, here we go again? Or do you kind of laugh at just the pure ineptitude of who this professor is, what he pulled off. I find how he treated his students the first 2 days kind of funny in a weird sort of way because he sounds like a total hothead. But I just wondered, what is your overall view of it? Are you mad about it?
So let me be a little predictable here, which may be perceived as defensiveness, but at least he wasn't banging some of his students like music teachers at another major university in the state of Michigan. Because as we've said on this show before, this crap happens on every campus, unfortunately. But I'm embarrassed as hell. I mean, this is not the kind of headline Michigan State needs. We have enough problems like this. But I'm super surprised about this guy because if you have a new gig, and clearly it sounds like this is someone who's looking for a fresh start, you start off all cookies and cream. You start off all sweetness and light. You don't come on like gangbusters. And anybody who's taught kids these days know that they are not real slow to call somebody and say, something's not happening here that I like. This is not the way it should be. They will complain about your ass lickety split, sometimes justifiably.
They're in charge now. They're customers.
Yeah,
now.
as in this
they're
case.
They're not students anymore.
Well, I'll tell you what they're
Customers.
paying. They should get everything they're entitled to because these tuition costs are ridiculous.
Yeah, that's part of the problem.
But yeah, no, I mean this guy clearly is a dingbat, and we'll find out just exactly how goofy he was.
It's as close to a victimless crime though as possible, isn't it? I mean, he was making meth for himself, right? I don't think he was selling it or distributing it, was he?
So I don't know.
Based on how the story was written.
Yeah, well, see, it's all very confusing. So I guess let's get a little background on this. So he was arrested after he was seen packing a moving truck at his residence. This is according to Alex Walters of the State News. He was charged with creation or operation of a clandestine laboratory for the unlawful manufacture of a controlled dangerous substance. This is according to a press release from the La Fourche Parish Sheriff Craig Wabry. And he got arrested. What happened next, we don't know. The prosecutor, who the State News said would have handled the case, said they have no records of him being tried or sentenced. But Captain Brennan Mathern of the La Fourche Parish Sheriff's Office said in an email to the State News that based on our jail records, I can see that he was found guilty and served a sentence and was released. So pretty good reporting by this young guy to go both to the prosecutor and to the sheriff to say, well, do you have any records of this guy? But the sentence didn't appear on the criminal background check MSU conducted before hiring Doyle. That's according to MSU Deputy Spokesman Dan Olson. If you're wondering who Dan Olson is, he's the guy you saw at that pathetic press conference with Alan Haller and interim President Teresa Woodruff saying, okay, now they're going to take some questions. But yeah, I mean, maybe these background checks are not as thorough, or maybe they did call down to Louisiana, and depending on who you ask, the guy's got a record or he doesn't have a record. And I presume that he didn't disclose this in his application, because you fill out a lot of paperwork. They don't just let you get in front of a class and say, hey, I know something about kinesiology. Let me tell you all about it. You have to know what's going on. So it's.
I wonder if he fell through the cracks because he was arrested in March of 2020, right? So COVID's going on. Is it just one of those things where, okay, it's meth. We'll let him go.
Yeah,
this guy's not going to go teach because he was teaching down there, right? Nichols State.
Yeah, Nichols State. So not an insignificant institution.
No.
And you would think that they would contact Nichols State. You'd contact a previous employer and say, hey, what's going on? But my guess is, being an adjunct, this kind of background check is they pay a certain fee and they run your records. And for all we know, they only check your Michigan records. And this may be something where the guy skips around. Like, it was well known for many years, and I think this has changed over the last 20 years, that if you were a doctor or some sort of professional that had trouble and you were in a profession where your services were in high demand, you went out to Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Alaska, because they're like, hey, I'm a doctor, but I might have killed some guys. Oh, did you say you're a doctor? We need a doctor.
Yeah, and I wonder, I would be very surprised if he chose Michigan State because he thought, oh, they're not going to vet me that well. I mean, there's no way he would know that, right? I mean, it's a job opening that he applied for under a different name, too, I believe.
Well,
He had a bunch of aliases.
yeah, so it was like if I went as M. Lewis Elric as opposed to Michael L. Elric or M.L. Elric. So, and his last name.
My point being that
His last name is not that uncommon, right? I mean, it's Doyle. So, based on the number of Irishmen roaming around this country, finding a guy named Doyle, there's probably quite a few of them out there. But yeah, what a dumb shit. And who knows, maybe he got
Total
caught
dumb
up
shit.
in something. But you don't come in
No, I
guns
doubt it.
blazing on a class. That's just, you want kids to say, like, who is this asshole? Let's posse up and figure out if we can't figure out what this cat's all about.
If he
That's
wasn't-
the best way.
If he wasn't such a hothead in his first two classes, the first two classes of the year, they never would have looked this up. And then he took the next three classes off because he wasn't feeling well.
Well, that's the other thing. Where is this dude? I taught at U of M Dearborn for quite a while, and there was it's the Harvard of the
Of Dearborn?
Southeast Michigan, but there were some times where the class was at night and you're on deadline, so you're going to be there late. Well, by the time you're there late, that class is buzzing. They're like, where you been? Where you up to? People are getting pretty worked up because they're there. And I would always warn my students, hey, I'm a working journalist. If news happens, I'm going to be late. Here's how you can call me. I'll try and get a message to somebody, let you know what's going to happen. But when news happens and you're a journalism teacher teaching a night class, shit happens. But students are like, hey, man, we're paying for you. You got to be here. And
Can't imagine you being late.
yeah. Hey, wait a minute. What are you talking
crazy.
to Sean here? But that was. This guy is a total bonehead. So we are hoping to connect with the student who really made this thing happen. In the meantime, let's do a little business. Let's tell
Sure,
people
yes, I'm sorry.
how Luke can set them up for a better future in case their criminal record somehow impedes them from making money the way they'd hoped, or the meth business just doesn't pay dividends like they expect. It's probably good for them to have a retirement plan so that they don't have to count on the Walter Whites.
I don't know if he can. I don't think he can. He cannot launder money. I don't want to be very definitive.
No. I'm saying that if that's your plan and it doesn't work out, it's best to have Luke on speed dial so that he can tell you how to make a good future for yourself legally.
Give him your legitimate money, the money that you have told the government that you earned, and he'll help it grow, right? Give Luke Nowacki a call, 248-663-4748. Free consultation. See what money you have. If you're on target to meet your goals, Luke will help you out with that. He knows his way around the market pretty well. So that's Luke Nowacki, 248-663-4748.
Because when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. Member FINRA SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
Good old Luke. Totally legit businessman. Make no mistake about it. Caju Cafe. They have got a lot going on this month. Every Monday, it's Blue Monday. They've got open blues jam, and of course, it's Mussel Madness, all-you-can-eat mussels. That is a Belgian delicacy that all kinds of other people like. Maybe you've heard of moule frites? That's French for mussels and French fries, and that's some pretty good stuff. They will keep that coming until you say surrender. Tuesday, kind of quiet there. Wednesday, karaoke. Thursday, Brian Charette Trio. Friday, WLLZ 106.7
What?
presents Motor City Rocks 2023 for a mere $10. Will they see Trudy Daniels there, perhaps?
But if they ask her, because she won't say no.
Joe,
To an
Joe, do you know
appearance.
producer Joe his mom's going to be there at the Caju Cafe on Friday? If so, we may have to meet you up there.
No.
He's got some sweet pipes there. Stereo Kings are going to be there on Saturday, along with Ethos. And on Sunday, musical fundraisers for Dylan Dunbar from 1:30 to 10 o'clock. And, of course, Mussel Madness again on Monday. So find out more about the Caju at cajucafe.com. That's Caju, CADIEUX, Cafe. CAFE, I'm going to help you, even though you should know that one. .com. Find out what's going on. Kitchen is open super late. It's open till midnight, Monday through Thursday. Great times for great food. So, no, excuse me. Kitchen's open until 10 o'clock. No.
Oh, are you changing it? What are you in charge over there?
There's so much going on at the Caju Cafe. It's tough to keep it straight. Let me be clear on this.
They just did a whole cleaning too, right?
They did. Everything is it's spick and span. So full menu available until midnight, Monday through Saturday until 10 p.m. on Sunday. So it's midnight every other night, 10 p.m. on Sunday. So get your ass over there. and
While
get
we
some
wait,
eats.
while we wait for Mackenzie before we move on, I wanted to get your take on something political in the world and what you may come at.
Oh boy.
Were you surprised to see that James Craig is running for the Senate seat, former chief of police?
I'm surprised that he's running now because I think he had a clear path, and now Mike Rogers
Yeah, that's the guy to beat, right,
is
from the
running.
Republican side.
Peter Meyer is talking about running from the west side of the state, who's presumably has all the money he can possibly need because he's part of the Meyer family and because there's a lot of political money for Republicans on the western side of the state with the DeVos family and some other folks who have been very politically active. And Rogers is going to face some carpetbagger charges because he's kind of been living out of the state for the last little while, and because he was talking about running for president and had some sort of notions, some delusions of grandeur, perhaps.
But he's a guy, Mike Rogers can bring in a lot of money, right? Isn't he a
I think
good fundraiser?
He absolutely will, and there are tons of Republicans who love him and have been praying for him to get involved in Michigan politics again. So I think that Mike Rogers is going to be really formidable. And Chief Craig, I mean, building an organization is tough. Now you have two other major players who are going to be building organizations. And the last organization Chief Craig put together cost him his candidacy for governor. So who does he turn to? And he's been saying when I talk to him that, I'm really waiting for national Republicans to get me going. They're the ones who have to bring me into this. They're the ones who have to present a plan because he, like many people, has no faith in the state Republican Party. But I haven't seen national Republicans beating a door to the east side to try and get the chief in the race. I think this notion that that I need to be drafted, that I need to be recruited, it's like, no, if you want to run, you should run. What's going on?
Yeah.
So this anointing, that speaks a little bit to, I think, being a little disconnected from the process, speaks a little bit to ego. And it also may speak to someone who's expecting other folks to carry the load. And I will tell you, as a one-time candidate, and it's one of the reasons why I will never be a candidate again, is there's all kinds of people who you count on. There's all kinds of people who say you can count on them. There's all kinds of people who make promises. And in the end, a lot of it comes down to you. And if you're not willing to be in charge, and if you're not willing to work harder and drive this than anybody else, it don't go anywhere. And I think the things that Chief Craig has been saying make me question whether he absolutely understands that. Now, as a chief of police, I'm sure he's run into this same thing before. But, when you're a chief of police, the people who rely on you, that's their career. When you're a candidate, they're like, well, we lost that race. We go on to another one. There's always another candidate. There's always another election. It's a completely different dynamic.
I like him. I mean, he's a good guy. But I sit here and I go, God, he's 67. But then again, I do this with.
So he's what, 23 years younger than Dianne Feinstein?
That's what I was just gonna say. You think of all these.
He'd bring down the average age in the Senate.
But why would you want? I don't know. I don't know why anybody would want to do it at a youthful age, much less when you're 67, had a successful career, and everyone's not me, and everyone's made differently. It's like I would just rather.
Well, people who
enjoy
run
my
stuff
time.
like to run stuff, and Chief Craig likes being a boss. And I think he feels like he's got something to offer. I think he feels like he can bring a perspective and a sensibility to that job that it needs. And so, if he's running, I mean, I would wish him the best of luck. I would wish him better luck putting together a team than he had last time, and I'm sure he's learned something from that. But now we've gone from a Senate race where it was Alyssa Slotkin, and even Republicans saying, I like Alyssa Slotkin, she's going to be tough to beat, to now a very crowded Republican primary with some
it's a good thing.
Some high-profile candidates. I mean, I went to Mackinac Policy Conference back in May, and the column I wrote was, where are all the Republican Senate candidates?
Yeah.
And now they're coming out of the woodwork. So we'll see. We'll invite the chief back on the show. He's always got a lot to say. But But yeah, no, I think that was an interesting headline today, as was the Crumbleys, Ethan Crumbly's parents. Breaking news. Here's how I found out about it. My boss, who's covering for my wife's boss, called me to say, why isn't your wife answering her phone? And then I said, here's the phone, answer this call. And it turns out the Supreme Court has declined to get involved in this. So it looks like Ethan Crumbly's parents are headed to trial on basically charges of being shitty parents who were so bad that other parents were deprived of the joy of their own children because Ethan went to school and mowed them down.
I think the court of public opinion is unanimous in finding them guilty of being terrible, terrible parents. Apparently, though, that's not exactly how the law is written. And are you surprised it made it all the way to the Supreme Court?
Well, actually, it didn't because the Supreme Court declined it.
But yeah, they got appealed all the way up there.
I'm not surprised their lawyers fought all the way to the Supreme Court to basically say, hey, we don't want these guys to go on trial. The one thing, and this would be really risky, and I understand why they didn't take this risk, but they've been locked up
2 years.
The longer this thing drags out, the more time they do without being proven guilty. So if they think this case is so shitty, they might have said, hey, let's go to trial right now because the sooner we're found not guilty or the sooner we have a hung jury or acquitted or whatever, the sooner we can get out.
Is that the feeling, though, that it is a strong case that they will be found guilty of this?
I think the feeling is that this is an extraordinary case in that we can't find any place else in the country where people have faced similar charges. I mean, parents have been charged with crimes because their kids shot somebody, like leaving a gun unattended, and it might be something
there's that
like
first grader in Virginia, right? The mom got charged.
Well, and I think boyfriends and dads and other people have been charged in Michigan and in Wayne County with, not having control of their weapon, but that's not as heavy a charge as essentially being an accessory to murderer, which is kind of what is being suggested here.
Yeah, through their negligence.
Yeah, so that's
ignoring him and
yeah, so that's pretty extraordinary, and I don't know where it's going to go. It has a potential to break some ground here. So the prosecutor is trying to send a message, and the parents are in the uncomfortable position of being part of an experiment, a legal experiment.
But it's weird because the prosecution, in his trial said, hey, he's totally normal. This guy did this. He knew what he was doing. This is all on him. But then in their trial, it's like they should have known better. He was just a kid. There's kind of a contradictory prosecution. And I know they're different trials and different cases, really, but that is kind of interesting that they contradict themselves. Don't you find? I mean, it's the same office, same prosecution.
Yeah, no, the two, and the Free Press has written about this. Teresa Bald has written a lot about this, is that in one hand they're arguing everything's cool, on the next hand they're arguing everything's nuts, and it's the same prosecutor making the arguments. So it's like, well, this could be thrown back in your face when this gets to court. But I do think that that this case is, I don't want to say a long shot, but I think it's something that is no slam dunk for the prosecutor. And so if I was the parents spending all that time in prison, I might say, hey, let's get this thing going just so that we can get out of here. Because if they're found not guilty, they get out.
Yeah.
If they're found guilty, they'll stay in. So what's the difference? I guess they're hoping that if the charges get thrown out,
you want the best chance to be found not guilty.
Well, I guess if the charges are thrown out, then you walk that day, so you save the trouble of a trial. I don't know. That just feels to me like I understand why they're going to the Supreme Court, but every day I was in jail unnecessarily, I'd be like, let's do whatever we can to get me out of here as soon as possible. On the other hand, it may be so horrible that you're thinking, anything I do that risks me being here for longer than I need to be here isn't worth the risk. I just have never been in that position, never hoped to be in that position.
It's been almost...
Or hope to never be in that position. And I think about stupid shit when they're in there, like they have horses. Who's taking care of the horses? Who's paying the mortgage? Is their house going under foreclosure? Who's dusting the credenza? That there's nobody to pick up the slack, and it's not like they were the most charming folks in the first place. You know, the rest of your life goes on, and you're just sitting there powerless to do anything about it.
Are you one of those people when someone is not remanded immediately because they need to get their affairs in order after a multiple month trial? You're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. You got a lot of affairs to get in order.
Yeah, but when you own live things, how do you get your affairs in order? They
just sell
put them
them
up for adoption, send them to the glue factory.
100%. You need every dime you can get to pay for these attorneys.
Well,
frankly, I would have sold them just to make the bond. Although I don't know, they don't have bond, do they? Or do they?
But I think they
or
do.
Is it
but
way
I think
too
it's
high?
so high.
Yeah.
It's either no bond because people thought they tried to lam, or it's so high that
which
there's
they shouldn't.
no way they'll.
Frankly, I don't think they should because they did try to. Remember they were found in Detroit.
Yeah, but there's some disagreement over whether they were just trying to get out of their house because people were mad. Other parents might come to beat the shit out of them. That's one of those things where when you hear all sides, nothing seems completely obvious. But Mark, why don't you try and call our student while I tell little people about how they can have a great time with the Michigan Peddler, because summer's almost over. But the fall fun has just begun. Invite your friends and family, up to 15 per bike, for fun on Friday nights on the town, Saturday afternoon soaking up the sun, or a roving tailgate before a Sunday Lions game. It's the perfect way to get people socializing and off their damn phones, unless you're taking pictures of some of the great landmarks and other groovy spots here in Detroit, where you can become an Instagram star. Why not try it? I'm told it's very lucrative. This is the party bike that's famous for cameos on Detroiters and for hosting celebrities from Solange, who's also known as Beyonce's sister. Athletes, media hotshots, and Soul of Detroit listeners have also cruised with the Michigan Peddler. Small groups are no problem, even if you have the Sean Windsor fan club who wants to have an outing, perhaps the smallest group ever, because the Mini Peddler holds groups of 6 or less. Rides start in Corktown, so you don't have to worry about traffic and parking. There's safe parking. Get on the bike, do your thing. If you're booking a birthday celebration, you get a free t-shirt. And if you use promo code SOUL, that's SOUL, you will get some free ML Soul of Detroit logo gear. Just talk to the good people at the Michigan Peddler. Tell them you're booking a Soul ride. You're on the Soul Patrol. And then tell them what size you are, and we will hook you up with some cool swag. For more information, you can call the Michigan Peddler at 313, because it's in Detroit, 744-3272. Let me say that again. It's 744-3272, or visit MichiganPeddler.com. That's MichiganPeddler.com. And now we are joined.
What a terrible song.
By our very special guest. What is this, the M Go Blue song? Oh, no, I heard this on Saturday.
Yeah.
Before the game, and then...
It's quite a game.
It wasn't much after
Mackenzie should be there, yes.
But we are joined by a very special guest who is taking kinesiology classes, but I wish she was taking my advanced reporting classes, because I think Mackenzie Albee has a future as an investigative reporter, because she is the one who led the effort to uncover the hidden past of her professor. Mackenzie, thanks for joining us today.
Hi.
So how are things going there at Michigan State? It's been quite an eventful fall for you guys.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We got thrown off track a little bit in that class.
I would say so. I mean, the very first day it seemed to be thrown off track by this guy.
Yeah, well, while I have the chance, I just want to say that I can't take all the credit to uncovering the articles. I'm not sure who specifically found them, but it was someone in my class.
Yeah, because you joined a GroupMe chat with people in the class, and then it kind of hit you right there, like, oh my gosh, this guy is he has quite the history. But let's go back to that first day. I mean, you were there. This guy comes in. He starts ranting and raving. I mean, what a red flag right there. What kind of stuff was he doing that very first day?
Well, his behavior was kind of unusual and erratic on the first day, and he had mentioned that he had only worked for the university for a few days. So I just wasn't sure if it was just because he was a new professor, or maybe he just didn't handle stress very well.
Now, how many kinesiology classes have you had so far?
Well, this is only my second one.
Okay.
In my major.
And you've been on campus for a while, so you have seen professors come in. I mean, typically when I teach, the first day we get the syllabus. We talk a little bit about what we're going to do this semester. I ask the students to introduce themselves, talk about their experiences, talk about what they hope to get out of the class, hope to do once they get out of Michigan State. And it's kind of a pretty soft start to the semester, but it sounds like that's not what you got.
No. Well, it was a pretty large class, so because it's only a 200 level. But he just seemed already irritated with any questions that we had to ask. And he claimed, he was like, I guess if you have any questions, then you can ask our assistant teacher, because I don't know how to use D2L.
So
Which
D2L
is an assignment,
is a software program that professors at Michigan State use. I think the D2L is something about D2 Learn. I don't know it too well myself. I find it very frustrating to use. At the same time, I don't start screaming at students that this job that I took that requires me to use this program is, confusing. I generally say, hey, I don't use D2L a lot because it's kind of confusing, but here's how it works. It sounds like this dude came in amped up. I mean, did it occur to anybody that maybe he was on something himself?
Yeah, were there whispers in the room like, is this guy on something?
Yeah. Well, the first day after the first class, I tried to look him up on Rate My Professor to see what people have previously said about his other courses, and I just wondered if he really just had first day nerves, or if he was just always irritable. But there were no results when I looked up his name.
I gotta look myself up on Rate My Professor
because he used different aliases. But then the second day rolls around, and he has another outburst. This time at an IT employee who came in presumably to help him with this D2L assignment thing. What was the second day like? What were those outbursts like?
Well, I don't know if this was the first or second day, but it was a pretty large class, more than 50 people. So there's going to be talking, and usually when that happens, professors they just carry on with their lesson, because it's not like a high school class. But he told everybody to shut up, and he was yelling at us.
Mackenzie, was it a frightening thing, or was it kind of like, was this guy's a nut? I mean, did people laugh when he did that? Because my first response would be like, this guy cannot be serious.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, this isn't really a high school level class. We're all adults.
Yeah.
So I just was like, really?
Exactly. Yeah.
I wasn't scared, but I was just kind of annoyed.
Yeah. No, that would be good. I would be laughing at him, which would probably, make him yell some more. So then after that, he just starts canceling classes, right?
Yeah. The week after, he said that he had the stomach bug, and then after 3 classes were canceled, I decided to join a group me because there was just I had no instruction. I was just kind of lost, and then I saw that 3 days ago in the chat that someone had shared the articles.
And you have teaching assistants, right? So that if this guy doesn't show up, and the students are like, well, if he's not showing up, I'm not telling anybody, the teaching assistants are going to drop a dime on him, right? And just say, hey, where's the boss? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not the crime of the century. So now you're on this group chat, and we appreciate you giving credit to the folks, whoever they may be, who came up with some of these articles. But once you saw this, what was your reaction? What happened next?
Well, I knew things were suspicious after a week of canceled classes, and I knew something was wrong, but I never suspected this. I was just in shock, and I was kind of like, well, now what? Now who is going to be our professor? And we had an exam coming up too, so I was just kind of curious what would happen with our schoolwork and who would be the instructor.
So you've got an exam coming up, but
On what?
What had
Yeah.
he? I mean, were there readings? What was he going to quiz you guys on? His intestinal,
outbursts?
distress. I mean,
Well, we had different software that he used instead of D2L, where we did have readings in that, but we just kind of had the book, and that was it.
Now,
So-
you said you were obviously disappointed in the university, I would assume, for hiring the guy. But how about after you made them aware that this guy's busted for meth down in Louisiana? Are you happy with the way they've resolved it, or how they've dealt with it since? Have they been? I mean, come on. The problem is with the Michigan State. Immediately, people nationally are going to be, oh, they want to cover it up. They want to keep it secret. Were they open about it?
Well, they just said that he had to leave for health issues. So I don't feel like they were very open. Well, after that week, the next week when we came back, somebody came and had talked to us about what had happened, and he had questions.
He had questions. What, for the students that found out?
Yeah.
What?
wait a minute.
He was,
So you guys have questions, and the university sends somebody who brings questions, not answers.
yeah. It was the head of kinesiology, and he just was kind of asking about what his behavior was like. But
Well, yeah, because technically
And then,
he's not fired, right? I mean, he's just on leave.
yeah, I think he's just on leave.
Is it hard, ML, as an adjunct professor like you are? Is it hard to be fired? I mean, are you?
No, you're an at-will
You're
employee.
at will, right? Yeah,
I
so
mean,
why would they
there is a
just-
union, but I think, one of the ways that you don't teach the next semester is they just say, hey, we're not offering your class, or we don't have enough sections that we need. Because here's how adjuncts come into to a university. One, you're some kind of big shot who has a super cool podcast that everybody loves.
Yeah, and then
Or they
how'd
don't
you
have
get
enough
in?
professors to teach the class, and they're like, well, this warm body ought to be able to get us through it, so let's put him in there. I'm assuming that this guy was somewhere on the warm body scale, because I haven't read anything that said he's some world-renowned kinesiologist. And Mackenzie, can you tell people real quick what kinesiology is? Because I think folks are probably scratching their head, because it hasn't always been called this. It's a relatively new major at universities, but it's actually a pretty cool field.
Yeah, usually when people ask me what it is, they're kind of confused. It's the study of muscle movement. So like someone who would be a physical therapist might have a degree in kinesiology, or an athletic trainer.
Is that what you want to do? What do you want to do? You want to be a trainer?
Yeah, I think that's the path that I'm going to take with this degree.
So what happens with this class this semester? Do they have somebody else teaching it, or are they giving you guys a refund, or are they hopefully allowing you to take the class for credit and giving you a refund because they put a screwball in the front of the classroom?
So we have a temporary instructor, and it's somebody that has worked at the university since like the 90s. She's great. She's a super good teacher, and I'm glad that we have her as our instructor for now.
Well, I mean, a pretty low bar for her to come in, right, and save that class. All you have to do is
Yeah.
not yell at the students and tell them to shut up.
So this is probably the university saying, hey, Professor so-and-so, will you take an extra class because we're in a jam and because we owe these kids a little more than they've had so far. So I'm glad to hear they're doing right by you guys, but no refund, eh?
No.
Well, stay on it and try and get more answers, too, because I'm just fascinated. The university won't say whether or not this leave is paid, right, because he's on leave. And usually when you won't say if he's being paid or not, he's probably being paid.
Yeah.
So stay on it.
I don't know about that.
You disagree with that?
Sometimes union rules prevent you from
is
saying.
he in the union? I mean, you don't.
Well, he may still be covered by a contract, whether, as Todd Bryan would say, union, whether he's in there or not. But and hi, Don and Carmen and Frank and everybody watching us and listening to the show on Facebook and on YouTube. But boy, oh boy, what a tough start to what has been yet another crazy semester at Michigan State. And Mackenzie, before we let you go, because I'm sure you have to make up some of those projects that this guy put out there. But with everything that's been going on, and I've been a Spartan since 1985, I was like, what else is going to happen? And I got a text from somebody saying the union is on fire. Did you get that last week?
Yeah, that was kind of scary.
What did you think?
Yeah,
did you like? Where am I? Is this crazy town?
I was like, what, MSU just never gets a break.
No,
there was always something going on.
The good news is it was just like steam and stuff being released from the union, and from above it looked like the building was on fire. The building was not on fire, so there's a little good news. But holy smokes, what a semester that you might want to forget, but you'll always remember. We really appreciate you joining us and hope that the rest of the semester goes a lot easier.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Well, Mackenzie, we'll send you a link to the show so you can share it with your friends. And if you have any football players that come through your classes, because I know some of them are kinesiology majors, tell them to hang in there. We're behind them, even if the management is a little tough to love.
Yeah, I'll let them know.
Okay, thanks. That's Mackenzie Albee, a great Spartan. She is proving the Spartans will. No matter what crazy stuff happens, they keep on fighting in tunnels and other places and wherever. So
do you know what I meant to ask her? What year is she?
I believe she's a sophomore.
Sophomore, so she was there last February 13th, too.
That's why when you hear the union's on fire, we had
that's what reminded
shooting
me of it,
at them. I mean, it's... So I have looked up Rate My Professors.
Oh, great. I'm dying to hear how you're rated.
Believe it or not, there are 14 professors with Elric in their name, and I am the highest rated of all of them with a 5.0 rating out of 5 points, 5 possible points. That's I've only got 2 ratings, and here's what really hurts.
What's the vetting process on these ratings?
Level of difficulty, a 2. Only a 2? That's a tough class, man.
Sounds like an easy one.
But anyways, yeah. So that's 5 out of 5. That's pretty. That's.
What are your little peacocky all of a sudden?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, one of my favorite classes. Look at that.
Yeah, because it was so easy.
Great teacher.
Because it was so easy.
I'm not sure.
I always like the professors that taught the easy classes better than the hard ones.
As long as you show up, participate in discussion, keep up on current events, and show progress, you'll do great. You'll learn a lot. Great class. Would take again. Elric brings his years of experience to the classroom,
BJ.
making it easy to learn and very entertaining.
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
Sadly, none of those skills have transferred to podcasting, but maybe someday. Maybe. I
didn't want you to go down the road of reading about yourself. We'll be here all day. I feel like I'm channeling the ghost of Sean.
Or the listener last week who said Elric has a huge ego. I mean,
oh boy, that really stuck.
You get those 5 out of 5 ratings. It's tough not to feel pretty good about yourself. But I'll tell you who I don't feel good about. Spartan Dogs for Life. This is the NIL
Why, because the
program.
name is dumb? Oh.
Okay, so whatever. It's a silly name and all that other crap. But let me just think about this. You're a Spartan Dog for life.
Yeah.
And you're funded by one of the millionaires that gave Mel Tucker this ridiculous contract, which turns out to be a disaster. And you're supporting all the football players and all the basketball players. Well, at the football players' time of greatest need, when they need supports, when they need the Spartan Dogs for life to be with them, to show you that when the road is rocky and when the rise is high, no matter what, the Spartan Dogs are with you for life. It's in their name. The Spartan Dogs for life bail on most of these football players, on all but a half dozen or so. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole basketball team still is getting their money's worth.
Oh, so only Spartan Dogs for successful.
But see, you're focused on the for life aspect of this. What if some of these guys have said, as soon as this portal opens, I'm gone. That's why I'm not playing the rest of the year. Were there a lot of guys out Saturday?
No, the only two guys who we're aware of as of game time who went in the portal were Hank Pepper, the long snapper, who I think actually made kind of a bonehead play last year.
Well, he technically can't be in the portal now, but after 4 games, you can retain a year of eligibility.
Right? Yeah, because they can basically be a red shirt. And Coach Harlan Barnett said that he thinks Pepper pulled himself because he wants another year of college, which if you don't want to end your college career on this team, tough to argue with that. And the other guy was I think somebody in the secondary, I believe his name is Chris White, who's played in 21 games but hasn't seen much playing time. And the coach said he thinks he deserves more playing time. Well,
then that's credit to Harlan for keeping them all on board. That's good.
Here's what I would say to this guy. I watch every game, and if I don't recognize your name and our secondary has been terrible and you can't break this lineup, get your ass in the portal right away, because they are going to love you at Valdosta State or at North Dakota State or at wherever Nowheresville place you're going to, because if you can't get PT on this team, we're not going to miss you that much. But I do think this is a 30-day window and that we are going to see some other names go in there. And you know, we wish them well. They certainly did nothing to have this plague visited upon them. But
then to have their money yanked underneath them from.
Well, so
I don't even know how much it is.
Let's get back to our geek of the week. Spartan Dogs for life. Okay, you know, you meddled in our program, and when the going gets rough, you bailed. That's not a message that you want to send. That's not what Spartan Dogs are supposed to do. You're supposed to stand behind your people. And if somebody says, I'm not going to play this season, then you can pull their NIL. But you do it from everybody except for a few people. Listen, I'm a Spartan Dog for life, and I'm not going anywhere. And just because you're some rich bitch who throws some money at a program and tries to toss your weight around and sign a secret contract so you can get all kinds of perks you don't want anybody to know about, but when things go south, so do you. Spartan Dogs for life, you can kiss my ass. You're also our geek of the week.
See you again.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
That's some 5.0 Geek of the Weekery right there, man. 2 ratings.
So great. Now we know you're obsessed. Now we know what you're going to be doing during the song.
You know, I am genuinely bummed out that Sean is not here for one reason and one reason only, because I think he actually might like the song that we're playing in room 7609, because this is yet another suggestion from a listener for a song that was used in a movie. It's
multiple movies, multiple shows, but one in particular.
Yeah, so John reached out and said, hey, ML, one of the best closing credits of a movie, Pixies, Where Is My Mind, plays over the end of Fight Club. Great song and a great movie. By the way, just moved my daughter into Holmes Hall at Michigan State. John Holmes Hall, very unfortunate. I'm in the Spartans family. Well, I'm not sure you want your daughter hanging out with John Holmes Hall, but it's named for a different John Holmes. But and has a quad.
It's named for the porn star? I was thinking of the other guy.
Johnny Quad is what they have there. That's where people hang out. No, that's not true.
That's a really good dad joke.
That's 5.0 on a scale of 5. Don't worry about it, John.
Easy.
Everything's cool over there. I think that's actually where the sciences of the medical kids go. So that's she's in some good company there. So John says, I'm in the Spartans family now. Go green. And he offers us this gem from the Pixies, which he says is the closing credits of Fight Club. Maybe Mark will tell us about some other flicks that he's been in.
Such a good song.
The first,
it's got a really cold start too. So.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was waiting for you to rap.
Here's the Pixies. Where Is My Mind.
Stop.
Stop.